Hello, this is Josh Belk with Belk on Business Podcast. Today we're going to take a little bit of a different direction than we have the last number of podcasts, and we're going to step away from kind of a lot of the tax and year-end and year beginning type compliance issues and tax issues that we're facing, and going to transition back a little bit into just talking about some general business principles. And today we're going to talk a little bit about qualities that a board member should possess, and this is really kind of comes from an article that I had read by a gentleman by the name of Dylan Dethier. I'm not sure how French sounding the last name is, or French the pronunciation of his last name, but he wrote an article in Golf Magazine on Tiger Woods. Now, probably for most of us, and before I even read this article, we'd never think of Tiger Woods kind of in his business element. Tiger is kind of someone that growing up was an individual. Since we're the same age, I think our birthdays are like 7 or 8 days apart. And someone I really very closely followed his career, kind of like myself, like so many other people in my age group, those of us that find ourselves in our I guess now middle-aged years, kind of really followed his career closely. It really kind of introduced us to golf on a professional level and began something that wasn't just our dads watching, something we actually watched with our dads because of Tiger Woods, and kind of brought a new generation of individuals interested in watching the sport and playing the sport, and myself definitely included as part of that. And for some people, Tiger Woods can be a very polarizing figure, obviously with some of the egregious issues, errors that he's made in his life. But I think this is someone that we can learn a lot from, both kind of before the issues that he had, both personally and professionally, and then now where he's at presently. And the main purpose of the article, as would be expected, was in regards to his comeback, hitting golf in 2024, these types of things. And I guess there's some interest in it. I don't watch professional golf at all anymore, but I do. I still get the magazine and occasionally I'll pick up an article and read it. But as I kind of read through this article, and of course it got into his health issues, he's going to play this year. Two really interesting aspects of this article. One was in his role as a father. There was a picture in there with his daughter as his caddy and his son, the three of them walking up the fairway, and it was a very interesting perspective as it related to his role as a father, and obviously as a husband and that type of thing. He's had some issues there. As a dad, you kind of really begin to feel his love that he has for his children, and some of the positions that he takes as a father with his children, which I think that most of us as dads would find admirable, or at least and to some extent agree with some of his parenting philosophies. But there was one section in this article, and like I said, I don't follow golf much anymore. I've read it from a business perspective a little bit about some of the issues going on with LIV, and then the PGA Tour and some of the what's going on. I don't pretend at all to understand the ins and the outs of what's going on there, but definitely seemed to be kind of an attack against the PGA Tour to a certain extent, and Tiger Woods' role of stepping in and trying to help in this situation at the board level. And the gentleman who wrote the article had talked about what some of the other individuals has said about Tiger Woods and his leadership and his effectiveness and his impact in the board meetings, and it kind of gave really a phenomenal kind of an outline of qualities that all of us should be looking for, not just in board members, but also I think in advisors that we have in business that we put around us. So if you have a smaller business, and like myself, it's definitely a smaller business. We don't have a corporate board, but we do have, I do have some elements of a leadership team. I definitely have business advisors that I lean into in regards to helping me make decisions inside of my business. And as this article kind of went on, and it talked about, let me see here, I think about 5 or 6 different items that I kind of pulled out of the article as it relates to his qualities that I felt that really kind of resonated with what I see, not only just in boards that I've served on historically, and I've served on some boards, some very large entities, and as well as currently in regards to just the individuals that we choose to put into our life to help advise us on the business side. I think there's probably a lot of personal elements that we could add into this as well, because I do think there are some parallels here. So some qualities that we see in board members as it relates to Tiger Woods out of this particular article that I had jotted down. First of all is that of experience. I think when it comes to the individuals that we have around us, especially if we have a board, if we have a kind of a C-suite or that group that comes together periodically to kind of discuss the business at hand, we want to have people alongside of us that have some experience. Many times I see, especially nonprofits, even for-profits, when they're kind of coming together and they're putting a board together, they just find people that they like, people that are kind of are willing to do it, people that may help them, but that's kind of the qualifiers. Are they available, and do I know who they are? Sometimes, and I've seen this so many times, where they'll bring somebody on, as a treasurer into their organization who they don't know the difference between a debit and a credit. Okay, they don't know the difference between a bank and a credit union. Okay, so certain types of kind of baseline types of areas, and they just don't have the experience that comes from to really be helpful. They're kind of brought in, they're going to be yes men, I'm kind of checking a box, that type of thing. Not the best way to make decisions when it comes to board members or advisors. Okay, so first of all, do they have the experience and the right type of experience? Do they have the knowledge? Do they have the skill set? And then I think even sometimes even more importantly, the network. I think of, for example, my business coach, someone who I'll have on here, I think in the next couple months on this particular podcast, is going through, and he's written yet another book. He's going to do his book launch, and I think something that you'll find a lot of value in when we shoot that podcast and put it out there. But one thing that I really appreciate with him being kind of one of my key advisors is his experience. He has a ton of taking companies public, for example. He works with a ton of different other business owners. And some very high-level business owners, professional athletes, some universities. I mean, so he has a depth of just very practical experience that I'm able to lean into, and that's the type of thing you're looking for when it comes to the board member, to an advisor. Do they have the right type of knowledge? Do they have a skill set that's appropriate? Mentioned earlier, this treasurer that doesn't know anything. Okay, that they just simply don't have the skill set to do some of the basics as it relates to filling that particular position. They're not really going to help you at all. Okay, maybe they can go through and do a deposit and write a check, but they're not really going to be able to strategically help you because they just don't have the knowledge or the skill set. So they have the knowledge, do they have the skill set? And another thing is the network. I mentioned my particular business coach has a very vast network, and so do I. And so there's been a lot of value created because of that network. So first of all, first quality to look for is that of experience. Secondly is perspective. Of course, everyone has a perspective, right? The perspective, kind of like opinions, and I think you guys and gals probably know the line. Don't need to necessarily repeat it here. Everybody's got them, right? And they all stink. But so the perspectives is the right kind of perspective. I read an article in Forbes here sometime out in the last few months, and I jotted this down as it relates to perspective. So perspective comes from their person's personal point of view and is shaped by life experiences, values, their current state of mind, and the assumptions they bring into a situation. Think of Tiger Woods, probably not someone maybe a number of years ago that any of us would have wanted as far as an advisor inside of our business, okay? Because someone just because he's in a really bad place from a state of mind perspective. Now he's at a position a decade or so plus later to where he has a much different mindset. And you see this in the way that he handles his business, the way that he handles his career, the way that he handles his children. And so some of those life experiences have really helped impact his state of mind and where he's at currently. So looking back at someone and saying, what have they been through? I was having a conversation here over the last couple of days with this whole particular topic came up of people's past. And we all have them. We all have issues in our past. But looking and saying, okay, has that individual learned from that experience that can bring us value now? And so everybody's failures, everyone's just bad things they've had to deal with, maybe some of their past even bad decisions. Maybe they've had to deal with consequences from their bad decisions, those types of things. And I know that for myself, this definitely resonates true with me, that, you have some difficult situations in your past. And so when you're looking through that board member, someone is someone that's learned from those experiences, or is someone that just continues repeating the same type of mistakes? So do they, and because those life experiences is going to shape their perspective. What values do they have? What is their value structure? Do they know their core values? Is there alignment there? Because ultimately you're going to want an individual who has enough of a foundation there to where their perspectives are shaped in a way that they can help expose to you maybe some blind spots that are in your business. They're able to look at things in a little bit of a different way. You also don't want to bring, yes men or yes ladies, yes women into your environment either. You want people who are willing to look at you and can see, okay, you need to consider this. You're not seeing this. Okay, if we think this through, this is something possibly that could happen if we make the decision in this particular way. And that all comes from someone's perspective. Are they leading just with their opinion? Okay, and so that, just whatever the last thing they read or the last thing they heard or kind of, what they're going through at the moment, or is it someone who can look back at their breadth of experience and say, okay, from everything I've dealt with, kind of knowing this environment, they can provide a perspective that can definitely help you. So don't look for people who are going to validate you, but for people who are willing to look at you and help expose those particular blind spots that you may have and provide a different perspective than you have. Next is, are they a careful listener? And this can come through a lot of, if you know the person at all just from conversation, are they constantly interrupting to get their point across, or do they listen? I was on a board of a very large nonprofit for, maybe 10, 12 years. And sat in as one of the key board members, and we had a member on the board, and he was an older gentleman, rarely ever spoke. And for those of you who know me and know what I'm referring to, his name is Bob. And Bob was someone who, the first time I was in a meeting with him, and the nonprofit I was on had really gone through it was a crisis that could have essentially closed the doors of that nonprofit. And one of the first meetings, we came in, and this individual kept on being in these meetings, and I didn't really understand why. I knew he was on the board, didn't really know him at all. Just some casual, our paths just kind of crossed in a casual manner. And one thing I noticed that, in the first few meetings, he never said a word. He just sat in there and just kind of took it in. And then he was brought into a couple meetings where we really had to make some difficult decisions. There were some, lawsuits and some other types of things. And we finally got through, and it was a very lengthy meeting, about an hour and a half meeting. And finally, for the first time, after probably sitting in 4 to 5 hours of meetings with him, that he finally spoke up. And when he spoke, the information he provided was the perspective that he provided essentially was everyone just said, wow. It was exactly the information we need. This happened over and over and over again. And the number one quality he had, of course, he had a ton of wisdom. His perspective on things was absolutely amazing. But the one thing that he led with, that he understood, was that he needed to be a careful listener. And so he listened carefully to get the information that was needed, so he understood the facts, and then he was able to provide a solution or a possible solution and ultimately perspectives that were very much grounded in wisdom that really helped resolve some very difficult situations. So was the individual a careful listener? I find that most of the time the people that speak the least are the ones that we should be listening to the most when they do speak up. That individual, when you're in a meeting, that all they want to do is hear their own voice, constantly giving their perspective, their opinion. Usually they're the ones that are not going to be as helpful if they're helpful at all. Usually it's that person in the room that doesn't say a whole lot. When they do ask questions, it's not establishing a position. It's getting more information. They're naturally very curious, wanting to truly understand everyone's point of view, understand the facts, and to come up with a good resolution. Next, willing to be contentious in negotiations, and I'm assuming this comes from some of the issues dealing with LIV and PGA, with what Tiger Woods is kind of leading some of this conversation, but willing to be contentious in negotiations. One of kind of the big takeaways I took on this as an accountant is kind of looking at internal controls. So if you have that person who's there is willing to be contentious, meaning they're going to kind of stick his or her finger in the proverbial chest or in the face of another individual, and really kind of call people to the carpet in a certain way, or to ask the tough questions. They're willing to be a little bit contentious, even confrontational. And once again, kind of going back, you don't want people around you that are yes men, but people who are willing, when the time is necessary, to be maybe a little bit confrontational, to be a little bit contentious, to be the one in the room that's willing to ask sometimes the uncomfortable questions. We don't want people around us who are willing to agree with us, but people who are willing to look at us and call us on our own our own BS. Okay, that are really kind of just say, hey, you know what, you're not doing this right. And we need to consider doing something differently. And they're willing to be contentious. And when you're kind of dealing with outside parties, they're willing to kind of stand up and defend the organization. So are they willing to be that particular person? Next, an individual that finds satisfaction in the endeavor. You don't want people who are disgruntled or who don't want to be there, okay, but finds actually satisfaction in being involved, okay, and goes beyond just receiving a paycheck if you're paying them, whatever the case may be, but someone who truly enjoys the journey, enjoys the experience, and is passionate about the purpose and the mission. That kind of really is passionate about the why. And so you want to find that person, not someone who, this is something I feel like I have to do because I owe you one or whatever the case may be, but someone who truly is passionate and finds satisfaction in the endeavor. And then lastly, and I think maybe this is one of the most important elements for all of us as it relates to any sort of the decisions that we make when we make decisions on who we're going to work with, and that is a desire to make an impact. And that was kind of the last thing here, that Tiger Woods understanding that he made his impact as a player and not so as much anymore. But here's now something he's able to take his life experience and everything he's learned and can make an impact currently in today's environment, and one that will last going forward in the future. And so that individual, bring that individual around you onto your board, into that circle of advisors who really truly desires to not just make an impact on you or in the business, but also to make a greater impact. That want to make an impact on the customers, or if it's a nonprofit, the individuals or the organizations that they serve. And so finding the individual that has these qualities. Do they have experience? Do they have a perspective that's going to be helpful? A perspective based on life experiences, their values, their state of mind, and etc. Are they a careful listener? Are they willing to be contentious when they need to be? And do they find satisfaction in the endeavor? And lastly, do they have a desire to make an impact? This is Josh Belk with the Belk on Business podcast. Hopefully you maybe picked up a thing or two out of this particular podcast. If you haven't already, please subscribe. If you have any feedback, we'd love to hear from you. Have a wonderful day.